Hey there, and welcome back to my craft room. This is video number 2 in my Fragrant Flowers product class for February 2023. I've already put one video up. I hope you enjoyed that, and this is our second card. This card is in some ways similar to the first one in that it features a stamped background. This time we're using the big beautiful flower in black ink to give it more of a sort of a sophisticated look, I think it gives it. We have softened it a wee bit with a piece of vellum, which is quite nice. And this time as we're using the big flower as our focal image here, so this nice big flower here. Anyway, lovely design. Look, to be honest, I think it's a really versatile design. You could use it for just about any stamp set that has a sort of a fairly large image like this one. I think it's a lovely one to have in your stash of designs. Again, as I said, new feature in my streaming service now is that they have that little QR code in the top corner. If you see anything you'd like and you would like to go directly to my online store, just grab your phone, put your camera over that QR code, and it will take you directly to shopping with me at my online store. I do suggest you have a fairly large image when you tried to do it. I tried to do it on my phone with my iPad and it was too small. So if you'd like to do that, maybe be watching it on a laptop and have it, or a PC and have it as the biggest image you can get. Okay, so let's get going with this. This one is, as I say, quite similar. We have in this time, basic black card base, usual size, 8 1/4 by 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/8. And we've got our layers again making an appearance. So we have a layer of fresh freesia, which is going to go straight on top of our card there. Then we have a layer of basic white. Now you don't get your layers mixed up because you may. The layer of basic white you're looking for to go next is only slightly smaller than your fresh freesia. You will have another piece of basic white that obviously is not going to fit there, and that is for stamping and die cutting your flower, so you don't get those mixed up. Then you've got your smaller piece of vellum and a couple of pieces for your sentiment as well. But let's get this started, and you'll have a layer for inside, which again, I haven't made myself an inside layer. I'm very slack. But anyway, you've got your inside white layer as well. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this fresh freesia layer straight onto my card base. Just get rid of some of these basic steps first to clear a space on the desk. I'm just popping that straight in the middle there. Oh, moved it a bit far to the bottom. Go back up again. Here we are. I'm going to just give that a wee bit of a burnish because it's not folded very well. Slightly off. Here we are, that'll do, close enough. So that's our first layer. Then we might stamp our white layer. So just get rid of your card base slightly. We need the big image again, the big flower. And this time we're going to stamp it just in your black, normal black ink. And again, we're going to pop it around, making sure that you have some nice images around the edges of this piece. So like that. And that is stunning. I love that black and white. You keep sort of rotating so you get slightly different images showing up and it doesn't get samey. With big images, these big stamps, it's often more easier to pop your ink pad down onto your stamp rather than the stamp down onto the ink pad. So I leave them facing up like that and then bring the ink pad in. And we'll just last one just to get some image here. We're going to do sort of, sometimes the image lends itself to certain little spots as far as the where it fits goes, and that's probably as good as it gets. There we are. So that's our little stamped background there. Okay. Now we'll pop that onto our card base. Now you can see from just the 2 cards we've made together today, it's how important it is to have something underneath you so you don't stamp on your grandmother's best table or something like that, just to make sure you get something to protect your surface. Okay, so that's that one. So we might add our vellum now. So the way I add my vellum is I use ink dots. You have to be a little bit careful with ink dots because, well, like with anything that you use to stick down vellum, you can see it through the vellum itself, because that's the thing with vellum, it's see-through. So basically I just add a few ink dots, and I add them in places where I can that I think they won't be noticed. So if I'll add one in the corners, and I'll sort of try and cover that with a sequin or a piece of bling. I'll add it down in the corners where I think I'm going to be popping some images and things, and in there as well, a little bit in further from the corner because I know that's where the flower is going to be, and I'll put one in the middle as well. Okay, so I've got, if you can see them, I've got 4 little ink dots there. I'm just going to pop that, glasses off. I'm going to pop that just in the middle of our stamped panel. Nowhere near the middle, Julianne. Roughly in the middle of our stamped panel. There we are. And you can see that softens that black up quite beautifully. Okay, next thing we're going to add is our image. So I think I mentioned already, you're going to need, for 3 of these cards, you're going to need 6 little flowers and 1 large flower. And this is the large flower. I've already stamped, die cut and coloured it. If you watched the first video, I showed you how I coloured the smaller purple flowers. This is basically just exactly the same way. Light and dark, fresh freesia with the dark in where you can imagine the shadows would be, and blended with the light, and then the leaves are just exactly the same with the old olive blends as well. So that's what you get. In fact, this one's probably easier to get the light and dark because it's a little bit larger. So you can see, especially in this top flower, you can see the light and the dark quite clearly, and in the leaves as well. So yeah, easier to get your sort of your shading with this particular flower. Now I'm going to add it to my card base just in the bottom half here. And I've popped it so that the flowers, the 2 flowers are on top of each other, if that makes sense, because then we're going to bring in our sentiment across the centre. And I wanted to see as much of the flowers as I possibly could. I'll just turn it. If you imagined I popped them that way, you'd be covering up a lot of the flowers with the sentiment. So yeah, pop it that way, or yeah, something like that, so that the sentiment just pops across the middle of those 2 flowers and that you see them popping either side. Now I'm going to actually use glue dots again for this particular flower. Now there's a reason. With the glue, I noticed with the original, with putting glue on here, it actually made the vellum distort. It made it crinkle. And I think that's just its reaction to the glue when it's wet. So I'm hoping that if I use some strategically placed glue dots this time, and you'd get the same result if you used, say, snail adhesive, or double-sided tape. I'm avoiding that wet time. I mean, obviously your glue dries, but when you first put it on, it's moist. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping this time. I'm going to avoid that. So let's pop that there. So our little flower, you could Wink of Stella this one again, obviously. Did I do that on the original? No, I didn't. Okay, so we've got our flower on there. So now you can imagine we're bringing in our sentiment box, which is going to go across the center of the flower like this. So let's just stamp our sentiment. I've got the thanks here. Just that sentiment box looked a bit skinnier than the other one, so I wondered whether I'd chopped it down. Anyway, it looks like it'll fit. So I'm going to use my thanks, and again I'm going to use my fresh freezer ink as per the original card. Pop that in the center of our sentiment box. Oh, terribly crooked and terribly not center, so I'm just going to flip it over, work out what I need to do. I need to bring it down towards me again a bit more. Apologies for that. Fun and games. Just straighten that up and then straighten it with my grid paper. It's a bit tricky when you're coming in over the top when you're recording, because I can't get my head. See, I just bumped it there with my head. Can't get my head perfectly over the top, but that one's okay. I'm happy with that. So there's our thanks. And this time I'm going to use, rather than the friend that we used in the first one, I'm going to use love. So it'll be thanks, love. If you have anyone in your life that you call love, you can always just keep it. You could always leave it out completely if you didn't want to pop it on there, or put the friend in there if it's a thanks friend. This time I'm going to use the love. Here we are, same sort of concept as before. This one I'm going to glue to the black background. Like so. Now these are both the same length, so the edges will butt up against each other or line up, but there'll be a border of black top and bottom. Bring this in, grab your dimensionals, your glue dots, your foam squares, pop those on. Assuming you've already popped your white panel on the inside, if you haven't already, pop that on. Must have been trying to save white paper. I haven't given myself any center inside layers. I'll cut them later. Okay, so just across the center of our two flowers, just so you don't cover too much of one or the other, just pop your sentiment box across, and it should cover all the way across those layers and be lost in the black behind the black card base. You see, you can't see those edges too much. They're hidden against the black of the card base. So there we are. So that's that one. Bling, it's not so much bling, but you've got black dots, the matte black dots, which I think really set off the black and white background of this card. So you should have 3 of those per card. So just grab those and pop them around. And this one also is done. There we are. Okay, cute. I think this is my favourite of this month's class. There we are. Love it. Okay, so that's card number 2. Again, I'll have a quick clean up and we'll be back with the last one. Okay.